Two worlds, one you can see, and one that sees you. The supernatural realm is real, it's close, and sometimes it crosses over. When it does, nothing is ever the same. America's Lady of Supernatural Thrillers, Marianne Paul, is here to take you straight into the shadows. This is Real Ghost Chatter. True tales from the other side. Let's begin.
Welcome to Real Ghost Chatter. I'm Marianne Paul. Today we are going to a place called Middleway, a small community in what is now West Virginia. The year is 1794, and we are going to talk about one of the most thoroughly documented cases of supernatural torment in American history. This is a case that begins with a seemingly insignificant human choice. An innocent refusal. Something most of us might have done ourselves in a moment of discomfort or unfamiliarity. And what follows that refusal is years of darkness, and then something else entirely. The story ends with a piece of the earth itself changing hands and a faith-shaped scar on the landscape that you can still visit today. Historians have documented this story. Bishops have documented this story. It has been investigated, argued over, and written about for more than 200 years. The evidence does not go away. This is the story of the Wizard Clip. Adam Livingston was a hard-working farmer. He and his family had settled near Middleway sometime in the late 1700s. By all accounts, he was a practical man. Lutheran by faith, or at least by background. Not the type to invite trouble. Not the type to court the strange. But trouble came to him anyway. A traveler arrived at the Livingston farm. This man's name has been lost to history, which feels significant somehow. He was ill, dangerously so. Livingston took him in because that is what you did in those days. You opened your door and offered a bed. But as the man's condition worsened, he made his request. He was Catholic. He needed a priest to administer the sacrament of the anointing of the sick, also known as the last rites, and the final sacrament the Catholic Church offers to the dying. Livingston refused. We don't know exactly why. Maybe he had no idea where to find a Catholic priest in rural Virginia. Maybe his Protestant sensibilities made the request feel foreign. Maybe he simply didn't take the man's condition seriously enough. Whatever the reason, the priest wasn't brought in. The stranger died in the night, unreceived, without the rites he had asked for. He was buried on the property. And within days, the Livingston farm became a place unlike any other in the county. It started with sounds, a strange clipping sound, a sound that was sharp, rhythmic, metallic, and seemed to come from everywhere. It came from the walls, maybe even from the air itself. The family couldn't locate the source, and they couldn't stop it. It sounded like invisible scissors snipping away in the dark. Then they started finding the evidence. Cut clothing, not torn or frayed. The cloth was cut cleanly, in perfect crescent shapes. The shape was cut into hats, stockings, coats, and even bed linens. All of the items were marked with those same precise half-moon cutouts, as though someone had taken a sharp blade and carved little arcs out of the fabric while no one was looking. But it wasn't just cloth. Leather was cut the same way. Harnesses, saddles, and boots. Candles were sliced through in the night. Even coins wrapped in paper were found with the paper cut in those same telltale crescents. No one ever saw it happen. The cutting was silent except for that sound. The unnerving, persistent snip, snip, snip in the dark. And it didn't stop. Neighbors came to see for themselves and left shaken. Some brought their own belongings to the farm as a test. They watched as those items, too, were found cut in the morning. Visitors from miles away came and went, their clothing marked with the same crescent arcs. The community had a name for it almost immediately, the Wizard Clip. But the clipping was only part of it. The fires were something else entirely. These weren't fires that crept along a wall or caught in a curtain. Period accounts describe chunks of fire, actual burning masses rolling out of the beds and across the floor. There were no sparks or embers. There was a rolling fire moving through the room and then simply gone, leaving no scorch mark, no explanation. This happened night after night. The animals knew something was wrong long before the family could name what they were dealing with. The horses, which were bred for work and discipline, refused to cross certain points on the property. They could not be coaxed, led, or pulled in those areas. They simply would not move. The horses would plant themselves as though the ground ahead had opened into nothing. Experienced horsemen who came to the farm and tried to move the animals themselves walked away unsettled. These were not skittish colts. These were working animals that had gone suddenly absolutely firm at invisible boundaries. Dogs fared no better. Accounts described the Livingston's dogs cowering in corners, whimpering without cause, or bolting from rooms they had slept in peacefully for years and refusing to go back. A dog that will not re-enter a room it has always known is telling you something. And then there was the voice. A disembodied voice began to be heard in the house by both the family and by visitors. It spoke warnings. It delivered what witnesses described as messages of mercy. And here is the detail that stops me every time I read it. That voice did not leave when help finally came. It stayed for 17 years, speaking, guiding. One historical record describes it as a voice whose influence was always beneficial and notes that its presence resulted in numerous religious conversions. Whatever had come to this property was not finished with Adam Livingston, not even close. Livingston did what any man of his time would do. He sought help from the church. Protestant ministers came from multiple denominations, all sincere men of God. They prayed, they laid on hands, they invoked scripture, and the clipping continued. One account says the cutting began right in front of a visiting minister. Crescent arcs appeared in his own clothing while he stood in Livingston's parlor. To say the least, he left quickly. These ministers were not frauds or cowards. But whatever had attached itself to this property was not moving for them. Livingston grew desperate. His Lutheran tradition had no ritual or formal practice for confronting this kind of darkness directly. He was a man with a faith that had no tools for the job at hand, and then he had a dream. I want to take a quick moment to tell you about my books. If this kind of story is supernatural pressing into the real-world darkness, meeting faith in the middle of it if that speaks to you, I think you would love the Raven's Cove Iconoclast series. 6 supernatural thrillers set in Alaska and East Texas. Real faith, real darkness. Real battles for the souls of people who never asked for any of it. The newest book, The Tide Weaver, is out now on Amazon. Start with Raven's Cove, Book 1, and let it take you somewhere you won't soon forget. Find all 6 at marianpole.com or search Marianne Pole on Amazon. In his dream, Livingston saw a man. The man was robed in the manner of a Catholic priest. He stood at the top of a hill, and there was a light around him that Livingston could not explain. The dream was vivid. It stayed with Livingston the way significant dreams do. It did not fade with the morning, but pressed in. He told people about it, and someone in the community told him about a Catholic priest in Shepherdstown. His name is Father Denise Cahill. Livingston went to Shepherdstown. He found Father Cahill, and when he saw him, the robes, the bearing, the face, he recognized him. This was the man from the dream. Father Cahill listened to the whole story, and then he came to the farm. Father Denise Cahill was a Franciscan-trained missionary priest, one of the early Catholic clergymen working in Western Virginia at a time when Catholics were a small and often suspicious minority in that region. He was not a man easily rattled. He came to the Livingston property and performed a mass. He blessed the house. He performed what we would today call a house blessing with prayers, holy water, and the full authority of the church invoked over the property. The clipping slowed, then it stopped, but not immediately. Accounts suggest the phenomena wound down over time rather than vanishing in a single moment. But it subsided after Father Cahill's involvement in a way it never had for any of the Protestant ministers who came before him. For Livingston, the message was impossible to ignore. In 18028, years after the stranger's death, Adam Livingston converted to Catholicism. He and his entire family were received into the church. But that wasn't the end of it. Livingston donated a significant portion of his land to the Catholic Church. That land became known as Priest Field. And here is what I find interesting. Priest Field still exists. It is a Catholic retreat center today, operating in Middle Way, West Virginia, on the very ground where Adam Livingston heard those invisible scissors in the dark, where rolling fire moved through his bedroom, where his horses refused to walk and his dogs refused to go back in the room. That land has been in Catholic hands for over 200 years because a man refused to get a priest for a dying stranger, spent years paying for that refusal, and ultimately turned toward the very faith he had denied. You can visit it. People do. The irony, or maybe the justice, is built right into the geography. Historians have documented this case extensively. It appears in early Catholic missionary records and in the writings of Bishop John Carroll, the first Catholic bishop in the United States. Professor P.J. Mon, writing in 1907, stated flatly that no facts in the case were better substantiated. This is not a campfire legend, but what was it? The Catholic interpretation, both then and now, is fairly direct. A soul denied the sacraments in death, unable to find peace, and attaching that unrest to the place and the person responsible for the refusal. The crescent shapes have been noted by some scholars as early Christian symbolism imagination long associated with the faith the stranger was asking for. Whether that symbolism was intentional is something I leave to you. Skeptics have their explanations. Shared delusion. The power of suggestion in an isolated rural community. But those explanations have always struggled with the physical evidence, which is the cutting witness by multiple independent visitors, the objects destroyed before witnesses, and the sheer duration of the phenomena across years. And there is something in this story that goes deeper than evidence. Something about the shape of it. A man refuses a dying man's request. Not out of cruelty, but out of discomfort or unfamiliarity. Out of the small, quiet hesitation that most of us would recognize in ourselves. And what follows is not punishment exactly, but a reckoning. A relentless, undeniable invitation towards something larger than himself. The stranger knocked on the door once. Whatever came after knocked for years. The Wizard Clip of Middle Way, West Virginia, is reported as a true story, documented by bishops and historians alike. A stretch of land still held in the name of a faith that a dying stranger asked for and was refused. I think about Adam Livingston, not with judgment, but with recognition. He was a decent man who made a small human choice. And then he spent years being reshaped by what that choice set in motion. In the end, he gave over a piece of the earth itself. Hebrews 13 verse 2 says this, "Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it." We don't know who the stranger was. We never will. But Adam Livingston learned, the hard way, that the person standing at your door in the dark may carry more weight than they appear to. Some people might call what happened to him haunting. Some might call it grace. I'll let you decide. Thank you for spending this time with me today on Real Ghost Chatter.
The supernatural world is closer than we think. Sometimes it chills us. Sometimes it reminds us we were never alone. Two worlds, every single day. And the greatest power against the darkness has always been the light. Stay curious, stay faithful, and never mistake the darkness for the whole story. Thanks for listening. Until next time, may the sun always be on your face, the wind at your back, and the good Lord walk beside you.